The brake pedal sinks to the floor again. My heart hammers against my ribs as I pump it frantically, the familiar terror flooding my veins like ice water. Turn 3 of Riverside Speedway looms ahead, the same deadly curve that killed me 6 months ago. But this time, I'm not the one whose brakes have been cut. This time, I'm in the pit crew, watching through binoculars as my former best friend Kayla discovers what I went through. After being reborn with all my memories intact, I finally understand the truth about that fatal race. The metallic taste of betrayal is sharp on my tongue as I watch her blue Mustang approach the turn at 140 Melvis Hay, her face twisted in the same panic I felt in those final moments. The radio crackles. Kayla to pit! Something's wrong with my brakes! Her voice is shrill with terror, the same terror she watched me experience while pretending to comfort my family at my funeral. I smile and lower the binoculars. Copy that, stay calm, and try pumping them. But we both know it's too late. 3 months after my 19th birthday, I died screaming Kayla Morrison's name. Not in anger, but in desperate hope that my racing partner and best friend since childhood would somehow save me. The brake lines on my cherry red Camaro had been severed with surgical precision, a sabotage so clean that the investigation called it mechanical failure. Metal fatigue, they said. A tragic accident. I knew better now. The morning of my rebirth, if that's what you call waking up in your childhood bedroom 6 months before the race that killed you, I thought I was losing my mind. The same faded racing posters covered my walls, the same trophy collection gleamed on my shelves, and my phone showed the same date I remembered from early spring training. But my body remembered everything. The sickening drop of the brake pedal, the helpless slide toward the concrete barrier, the crushing impact that snuffed out my dreams of going pro. I stumbled to the bathroom and stared at my reflection. 18 again, unmarked by death, but my eyes held knowledge that didn't belong to a teenager. I flexed my hands, remembering how they'd clawed uselessly at the steering wheel as my car careened out of control. The real test came when my phone buzzed with a text from Kayla. Ready for another season of kicking ass together? Team Morrison Vale is going to dominate. My blood turned to antifreeze. In my original timeline, I'd felt nothing but excitement reading those words. Now they tasted like poison, because I remembered what happened next. How she'd insisted on doing my pre-race mechanical check personally, how she'd sent our usual crew chief home early, how she'd looked me in the eye and promised my car was perfect. I typed back, "Can't wait, see you at the garage." But this time, I'd be watching her every move. Riverside Racing Academy buzzed with the familiar sounds of engines and dreams. Chrome gleamed under fluorescent lights. The smell of motor oil and burning rubber filled the air, and 20-something drivers strutted around like they owned the world. 6 months ago, or 6 months from now, depending on how you counted time, this place had been my sanctuary. Now it felt like a crime scene waiting to happen. Kayla bounced over to me, her blonde ponytail swinging, that megawatt smile lighting up her face. She looked exactly the same. 5'0" of pure energy, wearing racing coveralls that somehow made her look like a model instead of a mechanic. But knowing what I knew now, I could see the calculation behind her bright blue eyes. "Alex!" She threw her arms around me and I forced myself not to flinch. "I missed you over winter break. Ready to show these boys how it's done?" "Always." I hugged her back, my smile feeling like broken glass. "How's your car running?" "Like a dream. Dad finally let me upgrade the suspension." She bounced on her toes. "What about yours? Still having those brake issues from last season?" The question hit like a slap. In my original timeline, I'd mentioned brake sensitivity during our final practice runs. She'd offered to check them personally, insisting she knew my car better than anyone. I'd been grateful for her attention to detail. Now I understood she'd been gathering intelligence. "Brakes are perfect," I lied smoothly. "Had them completely rebuilt over the break." Something flickered in her expression. Disappointment? Frustration? It vanished so quickly I might have imagined it, but my gut clenched with certainty. She'd been planning this for months. "That's great!" Her enthusiasm sounded forced now. "Well, I should go check on my setup. See you for qualifying runs?" I watched her walk away, noting how she glanced back twice. In my previous life, I would have assumed she was just being friendly. Now I recognized it for what it was: surveillance. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. If you're reading this, the rebirth worked. Meet me at Warehouse 7 after practice. Come alone. A friend who knows the truth. My hands trembled as I stared at the screen. I wasn't the only one who remembered. Warehouse 7 sat on the edge of the racing complex, a forgotten storage building filled with rusted car parts and broken dreams. I arrived at sunset, my nerves wound tighter than a NASCAR engine. The massive door stood slightly ajar, revealing nothing but shadows and dust motes dancing in the dying light. "Hello," my voice echoed in the cavernous space. A figure stepped out from behind a stack of old tires. My breath caught in my throat. It was Marcus Chen, a former racer who'd quit suddenly the year before. He looked older than his 25 years, with premature gray threading his black hair and deep lines around his dark eyes. "You remember dying?" he said. It wasn't a question. I nodded, not trusting my voice. "So do I." Marcus leaned against a workbench, his expression grim. "Brake failure, turn 4 at Phoenix International. My so-called best friend, Jake, had debts with some very bad people. Turns out life insurance and throne races were his solution." The pieces clicked into place. How many of us are there? More than you'd think. Something happened 6 months ago. Some kind of cosmic reset that gave a few of us a second chance. He pulled out a tablet, showing me photos of young racers. "I've been tracking the pattern. 3 of us have been murdered by people we trusted. All brake-related sabotage, all covered up as accidents." I studied the faces on the screen. "What do you want from me?" "Justice, revenge. Call it whatever helps you sleep at night." Marcus's smile was sharp as a blade. "But this time, we're not going to be victims. This time, we're going to make them experience exactly what they put us through." "How?" "By giving them a taste of their own medicine. I've spent 6 months learning everything about automotive sabotage, about how to make it look accidental, about how to time it perfectly." He swiped through technical diagrams on his tablet. "The beautiful thing about brake failure is that it's so hard to prove intentional, especially when the car goes up in flames." A chill ran down my spine. "You want me to kill Kayla?" "I want you to let her feel what you felt. The terror, the helplessness, the betrayal of someone you trusted." Marcus leaned closer. "She murdered you in cold blood, Alex. She looked you in the eye and sent you to die. Don't you think she deserves the same?" Part of me recoiled at the suggestion, but a larger part, the part that still woke up screaming from dreams of crushing metal and burning fuel, whispered that he was right. Kayla had stolen my life, my future, everything I'd worked for. Why should she get to live when I had died? "What do you need me to do?" Marcus smiled, and I saw my own hunger for vengeance reflected in his eyes. "First, we need to make sure she takes the bait." The next morning brought the familiar chaos of race preparation. Engines roared to life across the garage, crew chiefs shouted instructions over the noise, and the smell of high-octane fuel filled the air like incense in a cathedral of speed. I moved through my pre-race routine with mechanical precision, checking tire pressure and oil levels while my mind raced with darker calculations. Kayla appeared at my elbow as I was adjusting my side mirrors. "Nervous about today's qualifying?" "Should I be?" I kept my voice light, casual. "Turn 3's been claiming a lot of cars lately. The banking's all wrong for how fast we're taking it." She leaned against my car, her expression concerned. "Maybe I should double-check your brake system. You know how important it is to trust your equipment." There it was, the same offer that had killed me before, delivered with the same fake concern. My hands clenched on the wrench I was holding, knuckles white with the effort of not swinging it at her skull. "That's sweet of you to offer, but I've got it covered." I forced a smile. "Besides, shouldn't you be focusing on your own car?" A flash of irritation crossed her face. "Just trying to be a good teammate. And you are, the best." The lie burned my throat like acid. "That's why I know you'll understand when I say I need to handle this myself." Trust issues, you know? Her eyes narrowed slightly. Trust issues? With mechanics. Not with you, obviously. I laughed, the sound hollow in my own ears. You're the only person I'd trust with my life. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Kayla's smile became strained. Plastic. Right, well, if you change your mind, I'll let you know. I watched her walk away, noting the tension in her shoulders. She was frustrated, off balance. Good. Marcus had been right about one thing. The key to revenge was making your target feel helpless, uncertain. Kayla had killed me with confidence, secure in her ability to manipulate both me and the investigation that followed. This time, she'd be operating blind. My phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. Package delivered to her garage. Timer set for practice run number 3. Make sure you're watching. I deleted the text and tried to ignore the sick feeling in my stomach. There was no going back now. Practice run 3 began at 2:47 p.m. under a cloudless sky that reminded me painfully of the day I died. 20 cars lined up on the starting grid, their engines growling like caged beasts. I stood in the pit area with the other drivers not running this session, binoculars trained on turn 3 where Marcus had assured me the show would begin. Kayla's blue Mustang sat in a pole position, chrome gleaming under the afternoon sun. Through my binoculars, I could see her adjusting her mirrors, going through the same pre-race ritual we'd done together hundreds of times. She looked confident, focused, completely unaware that death was riding shotgun. The green flag dropped. The pack roared away from the line in a symphony of horsepower and rubber. Kayla took the lead immediately, her car dancing through the first 2 turns with the grace that had made her the youngest driver ever to win at Riverside. I tracked her progress through turn 1, turn 2, watching her car eat up the asphalt like it was hungry for speed. Turn 3 approached, and my hands shook as I adjusted the binoculars' focus. This was it. This was justice, revenge, whatever I wanted to call it. Kayla would finally understand what she'd put me through, would finally pay for. Her car sailed through turn 3 without incident. Lap 2, same result. Lap 3. I held my breath as she approached the turn at 135 mph, waited for the moment when her brakes would fail and she'd realize she was about to die. But her Mustang hugged the curve perfectly, emerging from the turn like a blue bullet. My phone rang. Marcus. What the hell happened? I hissed into the device. Mechanical failure, he said, his voice tight with frustration. The timer malfunctioned. The charge didn't detonate. So she's safe. For now, but Alex, listen to me. This is actually better. We get another chance to plan it perfectly. Next week's qualifier is the big one, the race that determines who gets into the championship series. Higher stakes, more pressure, more witnesses when she finally gets what's coming to her. I watched Kayla's car complete another flawless lap and felt something cold settle in my chest. She was living on borrowed time, racing with equipment that had been meant to kill her. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it filled me with a dark satisfaction. What do you need me to do? Keep playing the friend, gain her trust, make her comfortable. Marcus's voice carried the satisfaction of a predator circling wounded prey. And when the time comes, I need you to make sure she's in position. Can you do that? I watched Kayla take the checkered flag, pumping her fist in victory as the crowd cheered. She'd won this round, but she had no idea she was racing against more than just other drivers. She was racing against time itself, against a debt that demanded payment in blood. I can do that. The week between practice and qualifying crawled by like a funeral procession. Every interaction with Kayla felt like walking through a minefield, pretending friendship while planning her destruction. She seemed to sense something had changed between us, asking twice if I was feeling okay, and once if I was nervous about the upcoming race. Just focused, I told her each time, forcing smiles that felt like grimaces. The truth was more complicated. Part of me, the part that remembered laughing with her until our sides hurt, the part that remembered her teaching me how to execute a perfect slingshot pass, wanted to warn her. But those memories were poisoned now, tainted by the knowledge of what she'd done. Every kindness she'd shown me had been a lie. Every moment of friendship, a manipulation designed to make her betrayal more devastating. On Wednesday, she suggested we grab a dinner at our usual spot. a greasy diner near the track that served burgers the size of hubcaps. We'd been going there since we were kids, back when racing was just a dream and the future stretched ahead of us like an endless straightaway. "You've been weird lately," she said, stealing a french fry from my plate. "Distant. Did I do something wrong?" I looked across the cracked vinyl booth at the person who'd murdered me, who'd held my hand at my own funeral while crying crocodile tears for the cameras. She looked so young, so innocent, with grease on her fingers and concern in her blue eyes. "Just thinking about the future," I said carefully. "What about it? Whether the people we trust are really who we think they are." Something flickered in her expression, too quick to interpret but not quick enough to miss. That's a pretty heavy thought for burger night. Maybe it's exactly the right time for heavy thoughts. I leaned forward. "Don't you ever wonder what would happen if someone you loved betrayed you? Really betrayed you, in a way that destroyed everything you cared about?" Kayla set down her burger, her appetite apparently gone. "Why would you ask me that?" "Because I had a dream. A really vivid dream where someone I trusted tried to kill me." I watched her face carefully. Crazy, right? Dreams like that feel so real. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between sleeping and waking. She was quiet for a long moment, pushing lettuce around her plate with mechanical precision. When she spoke, her voice was softer than usual. Sometimes people do terrible things for reasons that make sense to them. Desperation, jealousy, fear. They can make someone you love into someone you don't recognize. Is that supposed to make it okay? No, but it makes it human. She looked up at me, and for a second, I saw something that might have been regret. People aren't just good or evil, Alex. We're all capable of both, depending on the circumstances. I wanted to ask her what circumstances had driven her to murder. I wanted to know if she felt guilty, if she ever woke up thinking about what she'd done. But Marcus had been clear, no confrontation until the moment of revenge. Let her think she was safe. "You're probably right," I said instead. "More fries." She smiled, the moment of vulnerability passing like a cloud across the sun. Always. But I'd seen the crack in her armor, the guilty knowledge lurking behind her casual facade. She remembered what she'd done, even if she didn't know I remembered too. That made what was coming next almost feel like justice. The morning of qualifying day dawned gray and threatening, with storm clouds building on the horizon like an omen. I arrived at the track 2 hours early, ostensibly to make final adjustments to my car, but really to meet Marcus for our final coordination. He was waiting in Warehouse 7, his expression grim with purpose. "Everything's in place. The device is smaller this time, harder to detect, and the timer's been triple-checked. It'll activate during her qualifying run, right as she hits turn 3 at maximum speed." "How can you be sure?" "Because I've been tracking her lap times for weeks. She's predictable. Always takes that turn at 138 mph on her fast laps. Always uses the same line through the curve." Marcus pulled up telemetry data on his tablet. "The charge will detonate as her car enters the banking, severing the brake lines completely. She'll have maybe 3 seconds to realize what's happening before impact." 3 seconds. The same amount of time I'd had to understand I was going to die. It seemed like cosmic justice, a perfect symmetry of suffering. "What about afterwards? Won't they investigate?" "Of course, but brake failures are notoriously difficult to prove as sabotage, especially after a high-speed crash. The explosion will destroy most of the evidence, and what's left will look like metal fatigue under stress." Marcus's smile was cold as January. "I have been very thorough." "And my role?" "Simple. Make sure she goes out for her qualifying run exactly when she's supposed to. No delays, no mechanical issues, no last-minute changes of heart. Can you handle that?" I thought about the girl who'd taught me to drive stick shift, who'd shared her lunch with me every day in middle school, who'd held my hand when my parents got divorced. Then I thought about the brake pedal sinking to the floor, about the wall rushing toward me at 140 millipay, about dying alone and terrified while she watched from the pit. "I can handle it." The staging area buzzed with pre-race energy. Drivers suited up in their fireproof coveralls. Crew chiefs made final adjustments, and the smell of racing fuel mixed with ozone from the approaching storm. I found Kayla by her car, staring up at the darkening sky with a frown. Think they'll delay qualifying? She asked. Probably not unless it starts pouring. I checked my watch. You're up in 20 minutes, right? 19 minutes and 30 seconds? Not that I'm counting. She managed a nervous laugh. I hate waiting. Makes me overthink everything. You'll be fine. You always are. Thanks. She bumped my shoulder with hers, the gesture so familiar it made my chest ache with phantom affection. What would I do without you? Let's hope you never have to find out. The irony of those words hung in the air between us like smoke. In 18 minutes, she'd discover exactly what it felt like to be without me, permanently. Alex? Her voice was softer now, almost vulnerable. I need to tell you something about us, about our friendship. My heart stopped. What about it? She opened her mouth, closed it, then shook her head. Never mind. It's probably not the right time. Kayla, I grabbed her arm, suddenly desperate to know what she'd been about to say. Tell me. After the race, okay? Win or lose, we'll talk after the race. But there wouldn't be an after. Not for her. In 17 minutes and 45 seconds, she'd climb into her car for the last time. The conversation she wanted to have would die with her on turn 3, along with whatever confession or apology she'd been working up the courage to make. Maybe that was for the best. Some words were too dangerous to hear, especially when they came too late to matter. Okay, I said, after the race. She smiled, and for a moment she looked exactly like the girl I'd grown up with, the one who dreamed of racing glory alongside me. Then the PA system crackled to life, calling her number for qualifying position. That's me. She pulled on her helmet, the visor reflecting my face back at me in distorted fragments. Wish me luck? You don't need luck. You're Kayla Morrison. You're unstoppable. She laughed, the sound muffled by her helmet. Damn right I am. I watched her climb into the blue Mustang, watched her adjust her mirrors and run through her pre-flight checklist. The engine roared to life with a sound like controlled thunder, and she gave me a thumbs up through the windshield. This was it. The moment of truth, of justice, of revenge. The moment I'd been waiting for since the day I died. Kayla's Mustang rolled toward the track, and I followed to take my position in the pit area. The storm clouds overhead seemed to mirror the darkness in my heart as I raised my binoculars and focused on turn 3. Just like before, I was going to watch someone I'd once loved die screaming my name. The difference was that this time, I was the one who'd cut the brakes. The green flag dropped, and Kayla's Mustang leapt forward like a blue comet. I tracked her progress through my binoculars, noting the perfect line she took through turn 1, the textbook precision of her racing technique. She was good, had always been good. In another timeline, we might have dominated the sport together, might have pushed each other to greatness instead of destruction. But that timeline was gone, burned away in the wreckage of my original death. Turn 2 flashed by in a blur of speed and rubber. Kayla's voice crackled over the radio, confident and focused. Feeling good out here, cars handling like a dream. Copy that, her crew chief responded. Keep pushing, you're on pace for pole position. Through my binoculars, I could see her helmet bobbing slightly as she nodded. She was in her element now, lost in the rhythm of speed and precision that had made her famous. For a moment, I felt a stab of something that might have been regret. Then I remembered the brake pedal sinking under my foot, and the feeling passed. Turn 3 approached. I held my breath, watching the blue Mustang approach the banking at exactly 138 mph, just as Marcus had predicted. This was it. Any second now, the device would detonate, the brake lines would sever, and Kayla would experience the same terror that had consumed my final moments. The car entered the turn. Nothing happened. Kayla's Mustang hugged the curve perfectly, emerging from the banking like it was riding on rails. My hands shook as I adjusted the binoculars, wondering if I'd missed something, if the device had malfunctioned again. But as she completed the lap and came around for another attempt, I saw something that made my blood freeze in my veins. Marcus was standing in the pit area across from me, his tablet in his hands, his expression one of cold satisfaction. But he wasn't watching Kayla's car. He was watching mine. Because strapped to the undercarriage of my Camaro, hidden among the shadows and mechanical complexity of a race car's underbelly, was a device identical to the one that should have been on Kayla's Mustang. My phone buzzed with a text. Surprise! Sometimes the student becomes the teacher. You were always too trusting, Alex, just like the first time. Im. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Marcus hadn't been helping me get revenge on Kayla. He'd been setting me up to die again, using my hunger for vengeance as the perfect cover for another accidental death. But why? What possible reason could he have for another text? Check your bank account, specifically the life insurance policy your parents took out when you started racing. Guess who's the sole beneficiary now that you're legally dead? Guess who your grieving mother married 6 months after your funeral? My father. Marcus had married my mother after my death, had inherited the life insurance money that was supposed to secure my family's future, and now he was going to kill me again to keep it. But that meant Kayla was innocent. She hadn't cut my brakes the first time. Marcus had, while she was probably nowhere near my car. I'd spent 6 months hating the wrong person, planning revenge against someone who'd never betrayed me. The PA system crackled. Alex Vale to staging position. Alex Vale, your qualifying run starts in 60 seconds. 60 seconds to live again. I looked across the pit area and saw Kayla pulling off her helmet, her qualifying run complete. She was laughing about something with her crew chief, completely oblivious to the fact that I was about to die thinking she was my murderer. My legs moved without conscious direction, carrying me toward my car. The device was hidden underneath, Marcus had said, which meant I had no way to disable it without climbing under the car in full view of dozens of people, explaining exactly why I thought someone had sabotaged my brakes. Even if I did that, who would believe me? A dead girl accusing her stepfather of murder with no proof except her own impossible memories. I slipped into the driver's seat, my hands trembling as I fastened the safety harness. The engine rumbled to life beneath me, the vibration familiar and comforting even as my heart hammered against my ribs like a caged bird. Alex. Kayla's voice came through my headset, and I turned to see her standing beside my car. Hey, you look pale. Everything okay? I stared at her through the windshield, this girl I'd condemned in my heart for 6 months. She looked genuinely concerned, her blue eyes soft with worry. Had she always looked at me like that? Had I been too blind with misplaced hatred to see it? Fine, I managed, just nervous. You'll be great. You always are. She reached through the window and squeezed my gloved hand. And Alex, whatever I was going to tell you earlier, it can wait. Just focus on driving fast and staying safe, okay? Safe, if only she knew. The marshals waved me toward the track. This was it, my second chance at a first death, courtesy of the man who'd stolen my mother's grief and twisted it into love. But this time, I knew what was coming. This time, I could prepare. As I rolled toward the starting line, I keyed my radio to Kayla's frequency. Kayla, can you hear me? Loud and clear. Why are you on my channel? Because I need you to know something in case... I swallowed hard. In case something happens. Marcus killed me. The first time, I mean. He cut my brake lines and let me die. Then married my mother for the insurance money. He's doing it again. Static silence filled my helmet. Alex, what are you talking about? What first time? The green flag dropped. I launched forward, my car responding like a thoroughbred released from the gate. But instead of fear, I felt something unexpected. Relief. After 6 months of carrying the weight of false hatred, of planning revenge against an innocent person, the truth was finally spoken aloud. Alex, you're scaring me. Talk to me. Kayla's voice was tight with worry. Turn 3, I said, taking turn 1 at maximum speed. The device will activate when I hit turn 3. My brakes will fail, just like they did 6 months ago when I died in this same car on this same track. You didn't die 6 months ago. You've been racing all season. Alex, I think you're having some kind of breakdown. Pull into the pit, okay? We'll figure this out. But I couldn't pull into the pit. The device was on a timer, Marcus had said. If I tried to abort the run, it might detonate anyway, sending pieces of my car flying into the crowd. At least this way, the only person who would die was me. Turn 2 flashed by, almost there. I forgive you, I said into the radio, for whatever you were going to confess to. I forgive you. And I'm sorry I blamed you for something you didn't do. Alex, please. Turn 3 loomed ahead like an open grave. I took it at 140 RNC, faster than I'd ever taken it before because if I was going to die, I was going to die driving like I meant it. The brake pedal sank to the floor for the second time in my life. Lives? I felt the terrifying helplessness of a car that wouldn't stop. But this time was different. This time, I was ready. Instead of panicking, instead of fighting the inevitable, I did something that would have been impossible 6 months ago. I aimed. Not for the barrier, not for the catch fence. I aimed for the pit area, specifically for the section where Marcus stood with his tablet, watching his plan unfold. If I was going to die, I was taking my murderer with me. The world exploded into noise and fire and spinning metal. Glass showered around me like deadly confetti. The safety cage of my car crumpled but held, protecting me even as we tumbled end over end across the infield. When the spinning stopped, I hung upside down in my harness, blood dripping from my nose onto the roof of the car. But I was alive. Bruised, battered, probably concussed, but alive. Through the spider-webbed windshield, I could see chaos in the pit area. Emergency crews were running everywhere, sirens wailing, people shouting orders. And there, pinned beneath a section of catch fence that my car had torn loose, was Marcus. He was conscious, his eyes locked on mine across the wreckage. Blood ran from a gash on his forehead and his left leg was bent at an unnatural angle. But he was alive too. Alex! Kayla's voice, not through the radio, but right outside my car. Alex, can you hear me? I'm okay, I called back, though my voice sounded strange and distant to my own ears. Don't move. The paramedics are coming. I could hear her crying, could see her face through the broken glass, streaked with tears and streaked with oil. You scared the hell out of me. What were you talking about on the radio? What did you mean about dying 6 months ago? How could I explain it? How could I tell her about memories that shouldn't exist? About a timeline that had been erased and rewritten? How could I make her understand that I'd been living in a world where she was my murderer when the real killer had been wearing a father's face? It's complicated, I said instead. No kidding. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, leaving streaks in the oil and dirt. Alex, I need to tell you something. What I was going to say earlier about our friendship? What about it? It's not just friendship, not for me, it never has been. Her voice was barely audible over the chaos around us. I've been in love with you since we were 16, but I was too scared to say anything because I didn't want to ruin what we had. And then when you started talking about betrayal and trust, I thought maybe you'd figured it out and were disgusted by me. I stared at her through the broken glass. This girl who I'd convinced myself was capable of murder. She'd been hiding love, not homicide. Affection, not aggression. That's what you wanted to confess? I know it's terrible timing, with you hanging upside down in a wrecked car and all, but Kayla, I cut her off, I love you too. The words surprised me as much as they surprised her. But hanging there in the wreckage of my second almost death, I realized they were true. Stripped of the false memories of betrayal, cleansed of the poison Marcus had fed me, what remained was the truth I'd been too blind to see. Kayla Morrison had never been my enemy. She'd been my salvation all along. The trial that followed was a media circus. Racing Air attempts murder for insurance money made headlines for weeks, especially when investigators found evidence of Marcus's first attempt on my life buried in deleted files on his personal computer. He'd been planning my death for over a year, waiting for the right moment to strike when my mother was vulnerable enough to accept comfort from a family friend. The device hidden in my car was sophisticated enough to fool most investigators, but not all of them. Marcus had made one crucial mistake. He'd used the same explosive compound in both attempts, and traces of it were found in the wreckage of my original car when they finally exhumed it from the scrapyard. The revelation destroyed my mother. She genuinely loved Marcus, had seen his pursuit of her as a romantic gesture born from shared grief. Learning that he'd killed her daughter for money, then manipulated her mourning into marriage, broke something fundamental in her worldview. But she was strong, stronger than Marcus had counted on. Instead of disappearing into guilt and self-recrimination, she became the prosecution's star witness, her testimony about his suspicious behavior after my death helping to seal his conviction. He got life without parole. I got something more valuable, the truth. The racing world struggled to process what had happened. How do you explain a victim who somehow knew about her own murder before it happened? The official story was that I'd uncovered evidence of Marcus's sabotage and confronted him over the radio during my qualifying run, though that raised its own questions about why I'd gone ahead with the run instead of aborting. I never told anyone about the rebirth, about the memories that shouldn't exist. Some truths are too large for the world to hold. But I told Kayla everything. We were sitting on the roof of my apartment building 6 months after the trial, watching the sun set over the city. My racing career was over. The injuries from the crash had left me with nerve damage in my right hand that made high-speed driving impossible. But I'd found a new purpose working as a racing safety inspector, making sure other drivers didn't fall victim to the kind of sabotage that had nearly killed me twice. "Do you really believe it?" Kayla asked, her head resting on my shoulder. "The rebirth thing? Living the same events over again? I know how it sounds. Like science fiction. Or a really creative explanation for survivors' guilt and PTSD." She was quiet for a moment. "But I've been thinking about it, and some things make sense now. Like how you knew exactly where to find that evidence against Marcus. And how you seemed to know what I was going to say before I said it sometimes. And I don't care if it's real or not. What matters is that you're here now, and you're safe. And Marcus can't hurt anyone else." She turned to look at me, her blue eyes serious. "But Alex, if you ever get another chance at a do-over, another shot at living life differently?" "Yeah? Don't waste it on revenge. Waste it on love instead." I kissed her then, tasting sunset and possibility on her lips. In the distance, I could hear the sound of engines from the track where we'd both learned to dream. Where I'd died and been reborn and learned the difference between justice and vengeance. The brake lines had been cut, but not by the person I'd expected. The betrayal had been real, but not from the direction I'd feared. And the love I'd thought was lost forever had been there all along, waiting for me to stop running long enough to see it. Some second chances are about fixing what went wrong. Others are about finally getting it right. As Kayla and I watched the sun disappear behind the city skyline, I realized I'd gotten the rarest gift of all. A second chance that had taught me the first one was never really about the ending. It was about learning to trust the right person with your heart, your dreams, and yes, your brakes. Even when the road ahead looks dangerous, sometimes the only choice is to let someone else take the wheel and trust them to bring you home safely. This time, I'd chosen the right co-pilot. This time, we were going to finish the race together.